Are you a cat person or a dog person? Feel free to drop an emoji in the comment section to show which side you support. When it comes to emulating real life in video games, there was a missing piece to the Sims 1 franchise, and it was a huge elephant in the room that everyone in the Sims community was talking about all the time, wishing for pets to finally make their debut in their favorite franchise. Even though this expansion pack was never at the top of my list for what I wanted, I had a feeling that the Unleashed expansion pack was inevitably going to happen. After all, with a passionate gaming community like this, I don't blame EA for wanting to deliver on it and to give them what they were asking for. For those of you new to my channel, my name is Michael and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming. This is the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share some of my thoughts on video games that I enjoy. As mentioned in previous episodes, I will be looking at the following criteria and scoring it out of 10 based on my opinion and playing experience when I evaluate each of these games, and that criteria includes the concept, the gameplay features, the impact on the current franchise, and the impact on future Sims franchises. Based on those scores, I'm going to throw each of these games and expansion packs on a tier list that I created at the end of the video, and today we're going to cover the Sims Unleashed expansion pack, and I plan to analyze all of its features, even those beyond the pets themselves. So let's start by discussing the concept. Simmers were demanding it, and what surprised and what astonished Simmers, or at least me, is that EA decided to give in and deliver on an expansion pack that introduced gameplay with pets, namely cats and dogs, but it also included birds and other animals as well. And the developers, they didn't stop there. What's really understated with The Sims Unleashed is that it delivers on so much more than just giving the players cats and dogs and animals to play with. In fact, they built a whole theme surrounding pets that actually made sense and complemented the main gaming feature that would stick in the minds of Simmers for generations to come. In other words, they chose to expand upon gardening gameplay, which continues to entice Simmers with the possibility of a true farming expansion pack that we would never really get to see, or at least never see as an expansion pack dedicated to the theme. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. You see, in the Sims Hot Date and Vacation reviews that I did, I mentioned that there was a formula established in Hot Date where players would be taken to a loading screen in order to access new gameplay features. Well, this isn't the case in The Sims Unleashed, as the expansion pack does the exact opposite. It detracts from a familiar formula and instead looks to truly expand upon the player's gameplay experience that they have access to without needing to bypass a loading screen. The departure from the arguably predictable formula kept players on their toes in a good way. Now granted, players still had to bypass a loading screen to take their Sims off the lots to visit like a community lot, for example, in Old Town, but that wasn't really the focus of the expansion pack. I also wanted to make a mention that the concept of Old Town was perfectly integrated with the rest of the Sims neighborhood, both in concept, execution, and lore. The Old Town NPCs like Miss Lucille, WC Friendly, and the wild animal NPCs really helped make the neighborhood come alive and feel like a real place. Plus that French influence throughout was just a chef's kiss right there. It was a really nice touch at the end of the day. You see, The Sims Unleashed promised players the ability to adopt cats, dogs, birds, fish, or reptiles, to train them for cats and dogs, I guess, and to finally bring this kind of gameplay to the franchise. What they failed to mention was that they were also going to deliver on some key gameplay concepts that go beyond pet play in The Sims. Between that and the pet concepts themselves, I'm going to give The Sims Unleashed a 10 out of 10 when it comes to the concept, as I feel that the concept actually went above and beyond what players were expecting from a pets-based expansion pack. Now let's talk about the gameplay and the actual execution of the concept. The first thing that I want to mention is that the pet gameplay in The Sims 1 Unleashed certainly delivered the experience that players were wishing for. You had to feed your animals and train them so that they don't pee all over the place in your house, and also teach them new tricks. All the gameplay that I could honestly care less about, because I myself am not a Sims player despite living with cats. Other players were happy with what they could do with their pets, and I'm honestly happy for them. Since this is my review, I really want to talk about the impact of Old Town had on the neighborhood in The Sims 1 Unleashed. In short, Old Town was a game changer. Originally, in the Sims neighborhood, there were only 10 lots to build on. Well, with the Unleashed expansion pack adding in Old Town, the number of playable lots increased suddenly to 40. So that's from 10 to 40, a 4x jump. Back then, that was a lot, and to be honest, those are still more lots than some of the Sims 4's neighborhoods. So if you want to talk about adding gameplay into your franchise, expanding your neighborhood, and opportunities for players to create families is certainly a great way to do it. But that's not all. With Unleashed, they introduced the Sims' first ever inventory system. No longer will Simmers have to lose or misplace items that their Sims have collected from either from going on vacation or shopping downtown. There was a real inventory system that was desperately needed and not talked about enough, and The Sims Unleashed delivered on that gameplay mechanic wonderfully. And there's still more gameplay offered in Unleashed as well. This was the first expansion pack to really introduce gardening gameplay. And so in The Sims Unleashed, you can plant vegetables, grow them, tend them, and harvest them to put into storage after eating, I suppose. So yeah, if we combine the gardening gameplay, the expanded neighborhood, and of course the pets gameplay itself, I can easily give The Sims 1 Unleashed a 10 out of 10 in the gameplay department, since the gameplay went above and beyond what the players were expecting from the expansion pack. Now let's switch gears and talk about its influence on the rest of The Sims 1's franchise. When I analyze an expansion pack's influence on the rest of the franchise, I take into consideration the gameplay that players have access to before the expansion pack's release, and I also consider how said expansion pack's gameplay influenced the gameplay that comes after in future expansion packs. In The Sims 1 Unleashed, I strongly think that it had a strong influence on both the franchise's content that came before it and on the content that came after it. The most obvious influence is on the content that came before The Sims 1 Unleashed was released, and that can clearly be seen in the extended neighborhood that players get to play with. That much is obvious. However, we need to talk about the inventory system a little more, because that alone holds a significant influence on the early franchise content and on future expansion packs as well. Before Unleashed, inventory management was nearly non-existent as far as I'm aware. Please feel free to comment below if I'm just remembering that wrong. Anyways, the inventory and gardening gameplay introduced in Unleashed opened up possibilities that we see in Make It Magic when it comes to gathering ingredients and using items that we collect. In fact, this kind of influence can be taken even further beyond the Sims 1 franchise, and I'll cover that next. But for now, I am indeed giving The Sims Unleashed another 10 out of 10 for its influence on the rest of the Sims 1 franchise, just because frankly it influenced both what came before it and what came after it in really big ways, in my opinion. So now let's move on and talk about its impact on future franchises. I know that you're probably sick about me talking about the inventory and gardening system from Unleashed, a pets expansion pack, but I just wanted to share a couple of observations from those gameplay mechanics before circling back to doing some animal talk. Okay, so I think that EA realized that in order for a Sims franchise to have longevity, that it would need to have an inventory management system baked in the base game, and same with gardening. Since Unleashed, with the exception of The Sims 4, since I'm just not well versed with that franchise particularly, EA has released The Sims 2 and The Sims 3 base games with both gardening and inventory gameplay mechanics offered in the base game. It's just that sometimes we forget where it all came from, and in this case it came from The Sims Unleashed expansion pack. The Sims Unleashed also planted a seed in the Simmers community's heads for that farming gameplay is certainly possible. There were even new families that came with Unleashed that quote-unquote lived on a farm, and in my opinion, The Sims Unleashed really flirted with farm themes, and the Simmer community has never actually seen EA follow through on an agricultural theme expansion pack that has been done well. I mean, in The Sims 3 we had some store items, and in The Sims 4 rural gameplay has been sprinkled in that franchise sporadically. But Sims players have never had a dedicated rural farming expansion pack, and I think it beckons back to The Sims Unleashed, teasing players with these kind of themes without actually following through on them. There are pages and pages of posts filled with players asking for an agricultural themed expansion pack or a farm expansion pack, and in my opinion, The Sims Unleashed started that conversation. Lastly, The Sims Unleashed obviously influenced generations and future interpretations of pets to come. Every franchise has needed to include pets, otherwise the franchise would feel empty. And quite honestly, I agree. Even though I don't really play with pets myself in the game, the expansion pack is more than necessary to include within a franchise. You see, The Sims Unleashed put pressure on future interpretations of pets to take it one step further. Some of those interpretations, like I guess Sims 2 or Sims 3, arguably, and I'll cover those later, succeeded, others failed, and I'll review those sometime in the future. But for now, none of them would have existed had The Sims Unleashed flopped at release. And so this convinces me to give The Sims Unleashed another 10 out of 10 when it comes to its impact on future franchises. As the second expansion pack getting a perfect score of 40 out of 40, putting it in the perfection category, this feels right for me because The Sims Unleashed was positively received and had a massive impact on both players that played with pets and players that didn't. If The Sims Unleashed was released at any other point in the Sims 1 franchise, it would still carry the same impact on The Sims 1 as a series, and that's another reason why it is so great and so loved by so many people. You'll hear this again at the end of this tier list series, but The Sims 1 as a franchise really served as a blueprint for all other franchises to really develop from. The Sims 1 doesn't reference anything else, rather it is the reference that all of the other future games refer to. And this is ever so evident with The Sims 1 Unleashed. If you enjoyed this review and my thoughts on The Sims 1 Unleashed, then feel free to leave a comment, like, and consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that, and it also helps me to beat those algorithms and to help grow this channel. But furthermore, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and you are more than welcome to share any stories, any funny stories about playing pets and about playing The Sims 1 Unleashed. See, I'm already thinking about my future reviews here. So yeah, feel free to share any stories that you've had playing The Sims 1 Unleashed. I'd really like to hear from you and to hear how you've enjoyed the game yourself. Anyways, up next, I am reviewing The Sims 1 Superstar. Personally, it is my favorite expansion pack out of the bunch. I'll explain why in that review, but I'm also going to be extra hard on The Sims 1 Superstar, if I'm going to be honest with you guys. Anyways, thank you again for watching, and please have yourself a wonderful day.